Rowan.
Charles McLean.
Matt Hammer.
And we're missing one of our group members, but he had a very urgent situation.
He didn't show up.
However, we're going to take care of his portion of it.
You're going to do it without him.
All right, we'll start off here with our contextual map. Here's the Tri-County area. We're pretty much right in the middle of Oakland County. We're the Silverdome district here. So we'll start off with we have Pontiac here, our site here, which is by the I-75 M59 interchange, and some of the larger structures in the area, Chrysler World Headquarters, Oakland University. Okay, we'll start with the brief history, current use. The Pontiac Silverdome was a vision of C. Don Davidson. He kind of got with the head honchos in the Detroit metro area. They wanted to propose a new like sports venue, basically for the Lions. So we worked with Mr. Ford. They wanted to go. It's looking to at the time. I think there was. I'm not sure about the story, but the current mayor at the time wanted to. I guess wanted a piece of the action. So maybe it wasn't the most prime site in Detroit, so they settled with Pontiac because Mr. Davidson was a Pontiac resident when he was younger. He got his education, did his service elsewhere, came back, he taught at UAD Mercy. He was an architecture, urban design planner.
There's a lot of history, there's a lot of memorable events, as you can see up there, that happened, and much more than what we list over there. The Pope visited the Silverdome. It was the first Super Bowl in the winter region. Some WrestleMania history going on, as well as Pink Floyd, for starters.
Then we next moved on to the demographics and sociographics of Pontiac. Everyone kind of knows Pontiac being the edge of the Woodward Corridor. It's similar to the other edge being Detroit. And Pontiac, we kind of have, I guess, an income level and situation to where it doesn't lean itself towards much of anything, I guess, for-profit development. So we can see, looking first at the age, I guess we have 1 in 3 people are under 18. So there's large youth development or large youth in the area to work with, and then the 18 to 44 are kind of the family-oriented age, and then we can see that the 45 to 64, where it's kind of the peak earning years, those kind of taper off once you get to 65. We're much lower than the average for the rest of the county. So we're hopefully try to address the situation why people are leaving. So we get to Auburn Hills, I guess, and it's much of the same thing with the age demographics, but then when we get to the education is really different. Back
Break it down with the rest of your pride. We got.
Well, the bottom line is the population is
You've studied it, and you got it. Okay.
All right, here we have a driving radius of our site, and within this driving radius, we're able to locate like what's around it, what's within it, and we have some price ranges here of the household income. So what we want to do here is try to come up with something that's where we can do surveys to try to reach out to these people, try to figure out where they are, where the income levels are, and we can try to use the Pontiac Silverdome to create a product, service, and create jobs and get feedback from the community. So that's kind of what we have here.
So this is the future land use for the city of Pontiac. Right here is our site, and you can see it's surrounded by residential, and then we have like a light industrial buffer. But the future land use, they call the Silverdome the special use district because McKenna's already looked into it. They can't really decide on what the future is, so they've kind of left it as special use, and you can do single family, multifamily. They're really open to any ideas.
Do whatever you want.
Same, and then when we look at Auburn Hills, our site's here. Obviously, it's a little more nicer area, but we have this with Chrysler being right here, and then the Audi, Volkswagen. It's more or less just light industrial buffer between residential.
This is just laying that out on the map for adjacency purposes.
Yeah, more zoning here, and we can tell we have a little bit of water, so we're trying to look at potentials for the site with water, residential, bike trails, and we're trying to lure this traffic into this area to try to maximize its performance.
And we considered the major developmental typologies: retail, institutional, commercial, and then light industrial. And started by looking at our competition. As you can see, retail, there's all types of all of the retail market is pretty much accounted for, from Kmart all the way to Great Lakes Crossing, and even Somerset #9 there is not that far away. Institutional, well, you have OCC in Auburn Hills, which is right to the east, and you have other major. You have Oakland University and Cranbrook, which is not that far away. So all kind of all the whole education market, the whole gamut is accounted for as well. Similarly, with light industrial and commercial, there's plenty of vacancies right now to be filled. So developing something of that nature wouldn't make much sense either. There's 2 movie studios that are in the area. There's the one over there, the Raleigh, Michigan studios. And there's also this smaller, very small actually, the Parliament studio. So we feel that even though that's been, Michigan's been trying to get a lot of the movie business, that's all accounted for as well. So, which kind of leaves us in a rut. So we looked at some prior proposals here, and all of them are actually mixed-use type developments. None of them, this last fellow here from the Apostolopoulos family, who currently owns the Silverdome and purchased it for about $0.583 million, wants to radically change it to reduce the number of seating and to turn that into an outdoor soccer stadium and basically raise the stadium level from where it is now to the upper deck level. And underneath would be family, like hockey, family sports, sports complex of some sort. The cost of land. It was sold for very cheap. Originally, it was very expensive. And the operating costs are about $1.5 million a year.
And that kind of
Because
goes.
they have to maintain positive pressure within the whole entire building.
That equates to about $4,000 per day.
$4,000 a day just when it's vacant. These are some of the construction materials that went into the Silverdome. A lot of steel, a lot of concrete, and so on and so forth.
3 minutes, guys.
And if you look at some of these numbers, you can make money just by systematically tearing this thing down and recycling the materials. You can make about $100,000 from steel, and you can make about $250,000 from aluminum.
We're not interested in that.
Don't say it so quickly.
Well,
I think it's very creative.
we're trying to think out of the box. A lot of HVAC units that could also be recycled as well. And we're not accounting for labor, but all of that money would sort of pay for the labor to tear this thing down, is the idea. And you would end up with a blank site, which would be open to future development or, let it return to nature and some type of family-oriented thing. I mean, this... one point of view would be that it's not a good idea because Silverdome is such an icon. But when you look at it from a money point of view, from a developing point of view, we believe that tearing it away makes a lot of sense.
The problem with it physically, you gotta analyze it up front, is the fact it has a fabric roof
Yes, sir.
and not a structure to carry anything. So if you're gonna use it as an example for doing movie studios, one of the things movie studios need are heavy structure in order to carry lights, people. They go up in the structure and place lighting and all these kind of things they have to do up there. So it wouldn't work. It'd have to be removed, and by the time you rebuild it, it wouldn't pay.
Yeah, well,
I'm just mentioning that too, because you mentioned that a couple of times. Doesn't work.
some other possibilities.
These are some of our other possibilities of using the site. Well, since there's lights and there's natural lights there, what we're proposing to do is to either use some type of biomass, lettuce. Lettuce you can go for about $4 to $8 per square foot. Marijuana is like $13 to $30 per square foot if you can grow indoors.
You've heard.
Yeah, we heard. We did a little bit of research. But one of the things we wanted to implement is 2 sides to the story. We could actually use this biomass to produce biofuel and still have a product to seal, so you can get twofold. And at the size of the Superdome, you also have space outside, which can be used to grow as a growing medium as well. Now, security issues is another factor, but we're thinking of the possibilities of either growing indoors and using that natural sunlight and reusing the existing conditions of the Superdome without tearing it down. So these are some of the things that we wanted to come up with, because retail was not an option, schools was not an option, just because of the area. And with General Motors and Chrysler being in the area, you still have distribution, you can do packaging plants and reuse some of that space. You still have office space that's there, industrial, and we can kind of bring back manufacturing and maybe start some type of green jobs in that area, since it's such a low income area. So that was like some of the ideas we were trying to put together. And you also have aquaponics with fisheries, with Asian carp entering into the Great Lakes region. You know, fish is going to be scarce, and one of the statistics for Pontiac was water. The availability of water was very low. So we wanted to kind of introduce some horticulture there and use some of the actual water runoff that's close to the Superdome to help feed some of the plants with water.
Have you proposed any building on this site? Construction?
Negative.
No.
No, you're not. You want to tear it
We
down
believe tear it down and then,
and sell off the parts.
yes.
And
they're gonna grow marijuana.
If you were to keep the building, these would be some of your options.
I don't know, the building has no value.
Let's start with just conceptually. Let me ask you a conceptual question.
One more thing. If we use biofuel, you can actually retrofit the Superdome with biofuel generators and actually kind of reduce some of that operating costs if it's successful with that.
So let's go back to the map, let's say, if we could. You know, the bigger map. Can we have a bigger map? You have a bigger map somewhere. You know, because one of the questions is, interestingly enough, is this part of Pontiac? And I would maintain that it's not so clear it's part of Pontiac. I know technically you're right, of course. Yeah, that's good. Or there's actually even a better one, I think. You know, the combination is somewhere in here, that's fine. You know, it really sits way over to the side, unrelated to Pontiac itself, on I-75 and M59 with very good access, because it was built, the access was built around the stadium. So it has good road access, and it really sits as an island. It's almost, while it's technically part of Pontiac, in this case, I think you can almost ignore that from a market opportunity standpoint. Now, all the other things you said are true. Retail, there's no retail opportunity. Not so much because of Pontiac, in my view, but because of all the competitors that exist, and therefore they've soaked up the market. There isn't a clear market opportunity for a retail project on the site. So what I do think, however, is go to the Auburn Hills map. You have millions of square feet of office here, and my understanding is that the occupancy now is pretty high in the Chrysler building. That they have consolidated all their people from around the country into that building, and they're back up to like 9,000 employees or something working out of that building every day. Whereas it has fallen to like 6,000 2 years ago, you know, particularly at the bottom of the cycle. My numbers are probably wrong, but they're close. I know the concept of what I'm saying is true. So I would think that I've always felt that this site lends itself to industrial / office of some sort, given the easy access and the location so close to all of the tremendous office that sits in Auburn Hills. Now, there's no opportunity today, but you also haven't, in your mindset of connecting it to Pontiac, I don't think you've really looked at this from a regional standpoint. And I think you should look at it as it sits in context with Auburn Hills and think of it more as a regional site with regional access. And how does it relate to all of the other office and industrial uses? I don't think you can use the existing building. I mean, a friend of ours spent a lot of time and money studying whether they can make it into a convention center by changing the roof, putting a floor in between, and having the 2 levels, etc. And there's no demand for it, it was too expensive and whatever.
Yeah.
But you could argue taking down the building for an agricultural type use for now as a placeholder for ultimately an industrial / office use over the next 20 years. And working hard to relate it and figuring out the road systems and the connections with Auburn Hills in order to integrate it within that, so that in effect you're a satellite of Auburn Hills in the development of this site rather than part of Pontiac.
Yeah.
I understand there's no demand today, that's why I think you made it right. Tear it down and let it sit there. And don't do something stupid in a corner that inhibits or limits your ability to reutilize the site over time. I think if the building is taken down and there is growth in the market, eventually this site will find some form of use because of the visibility and the access. The fact that it's Pontiac it won't work for residential because it's Pontiac. That's going to be a problem. So, you know, that opportunity doesn't exist. So you really need to think about industrial, like commercial or office, I think. I don't know how much vacancy there is in Auburn Hills now. I would imagine it's pretty high. But, you know, you're not designing for today. You're designing for what is the potential 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now.
All right. Anything else?
That was great.